Despite its name, Fang was an ordinary small town in a northern province of Chiang Mai, situated on the banks of a river. It made a convenient stopover for river traders and passengers throughout most of the year. A few barges, rafts, and sometimes even a large sailboat could usually be found moored at Fang. But all that was long ago, before the creation of the Trial of Champions. Now, once a year, the river is crammed with boats as people arrive from hundreds of miles around, hoping to witness the breaking of an ancient tradition and see a victor in the Trial of Champions. Deep in the hillside, behind the town, lies a challenge created by a powerful baron of Fang called Sukhumvit, a labyrinth filled with deadly tricks, traps, and loathsome monsters from which there is only one exit. Each year, warriors and heroes come to Fang to face the Trial of Champions. Survival is unlikely, yet many take the risk. The prize is great, a purse of 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever. This year, you will attempt what has become known as the Walk, attracted to it for the simple fact that nobody has ever yet emerged victorious. In the morning, you see Baron Sukhumvit himself, with 5 others standing proudly in line, the violet scars displayed for all to see. There are 2 bare-chested barbarians dressed in furs, a sleek elven woman with golden hair and feline green eyes, a man covered head to foot in iron-plated armor with a plumed helmet and a crested shield, and another cloaked in black robes with only his dark eyes showing between the swaths of his black face scarves. A hush falls over the crowd as Baron Sukhumvit steps forward holding 6 bamboo sticks. You draw one from his outstretched hand and read the word 5th. The knight enters first. He salutes the crowd before disappearing into the tunnel. He is followed half an hour later by the elf, then a barbarian, and the dark assassin. Next, it's your turn. But before embarking on your adventure, we must first determine your own strengths and weaknesses. You have in your possession a sword, a shield, and a backpack for carrying provisions for the trip. You have been preparing for your quest by training yourself in swordplay and exercising vigorously. To see how effective your preparations have been, dice will be rolled to determine your skill, stamina, and luck scores. Or, if you wish to begin your adventure immediately, you can choose between 3 ready-made adventurers. First, we'll roll for your initial level of skill. This reflects your sword skill and fighting expertise, and will be determined by rolling 1 die and adding 6. Next, we'll roll for your initial stamina, which represents your strength. So the higher your stamina score, the longer you will survive. This will be determined by rolling 2 dice and adding 12. Next, we'll roll for your initial luck. which represents how lucky an adventurer you are. Luck and magic are facts of life in the fantasy world you're about to explore. This is determined by rolling one die and adding 6. You may also take a magical potion with you to aid you on your quest. Each bottle of potion contains 2 measures, so can be used twice during an adventure. You can choose from a potion of skill that restores your skill points to their initial amount, a potion of strength that restores your stamina points to their initial amount, or a potion of fortune that not only restores your luck points to their initial amount, but will also increase your initial luck score by 1 each time it's used. Lastly, before you begin your quest, you are given enough provisions for 10 meals. When you eat a meal, your stamina score will increase by 4 points. But don't forget, your stamina can never exceed the initial amounts you've just set. You have a long way to go, so use your provisions wisely. Now it is your turn to salute the crowd. Holding your violet scarf aloft, you take one final deep breath of cool, fresh air before turning to pass between the stone-pillared gateway into Succumbit's corridors of power to face unknown perils on the walk through the mighty Baron's Deathtrap Dungeon. The clamour of the excited spectators gradually fades behind you as you venture deep into the gloom of the cavern. Large crystals hang from the tunnel roof at 20-metre intervals, radiating just enough soft light for you to see your way. As your eyes gradually become accustomed to the near darkness, you begin to see movement all around. Spiders and beetles crawling up and down the chiseled walls disappear quickly into cracks and crevices as they sense your approach. Rats and mice scurry along the floor ahead of you. Droplets of water drip into small pools with an eerie plopping sound which echoes down the tunnel. The air is cold, moist, and dank. After walking slowly along the tunnel for about 5 minutes, you arrive at a stone table standing against the wall to your left. On it, there are 6 boxes, one of which has your name painted on its lid. The lid of the box lifts off easily, and inside you find 2 gold pieces and a note written on a small piece of parchment addressed to you. After placing the gold in your pocket, you read the message, which says, "Well done. At least you had the sense to stop and take advantage of the token aid given to you. Now I can advise you that you will need to find and use several items if you hope to pass triumphantly through my Deathtrap Dungeon. Signed, Succumbit." Memorizing the advice on the note, you tear it into tiny pieces and continue north along the tunnel, where you come to a junction. A white arrow painted on one wall points west. On the floor you can see wet footprints made by those who entered before you. It's hard to be sure, but it looks as though 3 of them followed the direction of the arrow, while one decided to go east. Ahead, you can see a large obstruction on the tunnel floor. Although it is too dark to make out exactly what it is, the wet eastbound footprints you have been following carry on towards the obstruction. You see that the obstruction is a large brown boulder-like object. You touch it with your hand and are surprised to find that it is soft and spongy. Your sword easily pierces the thin outer casing of the giant spore ball. A thick brown cloud of spores bursts out of the ball and envelops you. Some of the spores stick to your skin and start to itch terribly. You lose 2 stamina points as great lumps come up on your face and arms, and your skin feels as if it is on fire. Frantically scratching your itching lumps, you step over the now deflated spore ball. Pressing on east, you turn left, which heads north for as far as you can see. The footprints you are following start to peter out as the tunnel becomes gradually drier. Soon you are beyond the dripping roof and the pools on the floor. You notice the air becoming hotter, and you find yourself panting even though you are walking quite slowly. In a small recess on the left-hand wall, you see a section of bamboo standing on its end. Lifting it down, you see it is filled with a clear liquid. Your throat is painfully dry, and you feel a little dizzy from the heat in the tunnel. The water in the bamboo pipe is welcomely refreshing and adds 1 stamina point. It also contains a magical solution which will enable you to be exposed to melting point temperatures without harm. Discarding the bamboo, you start off north again, in good spirits. You find yourself dripping with sweat as the temperature continues to rise. As you struggle on, the heat intensifies until it becomes so unbearable that you feel yourself begin to pass out. Although the temperature in the tunnel is higher than you could normally tolerate, the liquid from the bamboo pipe keeps you alive, and mercifully, after a few moments, the temperature drops rapidly and soon feels almost cool again. On the left-hand side of the tunnel is a closed door. It has a small iron plate in it, which looks like it might slide open. The small plate slides open easily, and you find yourself peering into a room with a deep pit in the floor behind the door. On the opposite wall, there is a coil of rope hanging on one of 2 iron hooks. The door swings open into the room, and you step back and jump over the pit. You put the rope in your backpack and jump back over the pit to leave the room and head north. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns sharply to the left. You turn a corner and almost bump straight into 2 fierce-looking orcs armed with morning stars and wearing leather armor. You are totally unprepared for them and struggle to ready your weapons. During your adventure, you'll enter into combat a number of times, and the further you go, the tougher your opponents will be. Combat takes place over several rounds, and your attack strength is based on yours and your enemy's skill scores. For each round of battle, we'll roll 2 dice for you and 2 for your opponent, adding the results to your skill scores. These are your respective attack strengths. Whoever's attack strength is the highest wins that round of combat. If you both had the same attack strength in a round, then it will be a tie. In some battles, you can take an opportunity to escape. But beware. If you do run away, your opponent will automatically score 1 hit on you as you flee, costing you 2 stamina points. So be sure you have enough. Such is the price of cowardice. You are playing using the traditional battle system from the original Deathtrap Dungeon book. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. After each battle round, you'll be able to test your luck. By using luck in battles, you can either score a more serious wound on your opponent or minimize the effects of a wound scored on you. If you test your luck after you have just wounded your opponent, we'll roll 2 dice, and if the total is the same or less than your current luck score, you will have been lucky and will take an extra 2 points from your opponent's stamina. But if the roll is greater, then the damage to your opponent will be halved. If your opponent has just inflicted a 2 stamina wound on you, a lucky roll will halve that damage, but an unlucky roll will take an additional stamina point. One last thing. Testing your luck has a cost. Each time you test your luck score will be reduced by 1 point. The orcs roar, and as you draw your sword, one of them swings its morning star at you, which sinks agonizingly into your left thigh, costing you 3 stamina points. You stagger backwards, but manage to regain your balance in time to defend yourself. Fortunately, the tunnel is too narrow for both orcs to attack you at once, so you fight them, one at a time. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. The orc is strong but slow, and you're able to strike hard with your sword. Your shield protects you from the orc's frenzied attack, while you're able to hack at its leg. You raise your sword to parry the attack, and are able to kick the orc hard in the stomach. The first orc slumps lifeless to the floor, so you turn your attention to the other. The orc is strong but slow, and you're able to strike hard with your sword. Your shield protects you from the orc's frenzied attack, while you're able to hack at its leg. Inside one of the orc's pockets, you find 1 gold piece and a hollow wooden tube. You put your findings in your backpack and set off west. As you walk along, Droplets of water again start falling from the tunnel's ceiling. Heading west, you see wet footprints made by the same boots that you followed earlier. They lead to a closed iron door in the right-hand wall of the tunnel, but do not seem to go any further. The door opens into a large chamber, where you are shocked to see one of your rivals who has obviously met a sudden gory death. It is one of the barbarians, and he is impaled on several long iron spikes that are fixed to a frame which has sprung out of the floor. A lot of debris litters the floor, concealing a hidden tripwire which he must have stepped on, releasing the spiked frame. In the far wall is an alcove, in which you can see a silver goblet standing on a small wooden table. The pouch on the barbarian's belt is empty, apart from some strange-looking dried meat wrapped in a cloth. You walk slowly over to the alcove, carefully checking the floor for any more hidden traps. You see that the goblet contains a sparkling red liquid. As you lift the goblet, it releases a sprung catch, and a dart shoots out of the wooden table leg. This will be a test of your luck. Well, roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you have been lucky. But if the roll is higher than your luck score, then your luck isn't in. Your reflexes are sharp, and you quickly jump aside. The dart whistles past, only just missing you, and thuds into the opposite wall. You see the goblet lying on the floor, and the red liquid running away in rivulets over the grey stone. At least the goblet may be of use. So you put it in your backpack, leave the chamber, and continue west. The passage soon leads to a junction, where you notice more footprints on the floor, possibly as many as 3 pairs, heading north from the south passage. You decide to follow them to where the passage opens out into a wide cavern, which is darker but much drier. Ahead, you see the footprints gradually fade, then disappear. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand 2 giant stuffed, bird-like creatures. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb, but the rope you found earlier will help here, and you make it into a lasso. You whirl the rope above your head and throw it up at the idol, smiling happily as it lands around its neck. You then tighten the noose and start to climb, hauling yourself up the rope. You are soon at the top of the idol, sitting on the bridge of its nose and holding on to the rope. You draw your sword and wonder which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the idol's emerald eye, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, You are shocked to see the two stuffed birds flying off. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians one at a time, but reduce your skill by 2 during this combat because of your restricted position. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. The beating wing of the guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You manage to grab one of its legs, flipping it over, making it fall fast, but it recovers just before hitting the ground. Neither of you are harmed. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor. So you ready yourself to take on the second. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the two flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prise out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight when it falls into your hand. Hoping it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. You try to force the point of your sword under the emerald eye. Much to your surprise, the emerald shatters on contact, releasing a jet of poisonous gas straight into your face. The gas knocks you out, and you release the rope, bouncing down the idol and crashing onto the stone floor. Your adventure ends here. Back on solid ground once again on the cavern floor, you try to shake the rope off the idol's neck. This will be a test of your luck. Remember, 2 dice are rolled. Equal to or less than your current luck score, you'll have been lucky. Higher than your current luck score, you have been unlucky. The lasso loosens itself, and you are able to shake it free of the idol's neck. It falls to the floor with a loud clatter. You quickly coil the rope up again and put it in your backpack. Wasting no more time in the cavern, you run forward to the tunnel in the northern wall. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but hear nothing. You enter a room which is small and completely empty. As soon as you are inside, the door slams shut behind you. Suddenly a voice booms out of nowhere, shouting, "Welcome to Deathtrap Dungeon, the ingenious killer labyrinth of my master. Adventurer, I trust you will pay your respects to my master by shouting out his name." You take a deep breath and shout, "Hail Succumvit!" Once again, the mysterious voice calls out. Only this time its tone is full of contempt and derision. "So, we have a sniveling weed in our midst, do we?" sneers the voice. "My master has a special gift for you, loathsome creep." Suddenly water starts pouring into the room through a hole in the ceiling. It soon rises above your ankles, and there is no apparent way of escape. You wade back to the door. It is firmly locked, but in desperation you try ramming it with your shoulder. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you have been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. The door cannot withstand the furious battering you are giving it. The center panel cracks and splinters, enabling you to kick a hole in it large enough for you to squeeze through. Soaked, but happy to have survived your ordeal, you set off north again. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, you see a thin shaft of blue light streaming down from the ceiling to the floor. It sparkles and shimmers, and you can see images of laughing faces in the light. As soon as your head goes under the blue light, you hear the sound of muffled voices. The faces are no longer laughing. but have changed their expressions to one of despair and anguish. A young girl's sad face hovers in front of you, and she begins to whisper a poem. Transfixed, you listen intently, believing that she has a special message for you as she recites, "When corridor doth water meet, do not make a quick retreat. Take a breath and jump deep in, if your trial you hope to win." Memorizing the spirit girl's poem, you step through the shaft of light and quickly head on north. You come to an arched doorway set in the right-hand wall of the tunnel. The heavy stone door is closed, but there is an iron latch and a round handle. Lifting the latch and pushing the heavy stone door open, you find yourself in a large cabin. The light is dim and murky, but as your eyes begin to adjust, you see that the walls are covered in green algae and running with moisture. The floor is strewn with straw. The atmosphere is warm, damp, and fetid, and a soft humming sound fills the air. You step gingerly through the straw towards a corner of the cabin where there appears to be a shallow pit. Peering warily into the pit, you are disgusted to see a mass of pale, writhing worms, some as much as 1/2 meter long. Nauseated, you are about to turn away when you notice that their undulating bodies are swarming around a dagger, its point held fast in a crack in the pit floor. The hilt is cased in black leather, studded with opals, and the blade is fashioned from a strange, reddish-black burnished metal you have never seen before. You long to touch the dagger, but this would mean plunging your hand in among the writhing worms. Taking a deep breath, you lean over the pit and plunge your forearm into the mass of wriggling worms. They are cold and clammy and feel extremely nasty, but at least they are harmless, and you are able to seize the dagger by the hilt. You give it a hard tug and it comes away from the crack in which the tip was embedded. Admiring its beauty and wondering whether it might once have belonged to some luckless contestant, you put the opal-studded dagger firmly in your belt and leave the cabin. As you make your way back to the doorway, the buzzing sound increases in intensity, and you look around desperately to discover where it's coming from. Glancing up in the nick of time, you see a huge and grotesque black shape of a giant fly emerging from a recess high up in the cavern wall. As it gets closer, you realize that it's at least 1.5 meters long. Its opaque wings vibrate, making the sickening buzzing noise you can hear, and its 6 black, hairy legs are poised to grasp your body. Below, its multifaceted eyes is a long, shiny black proboscis, which darts in and out venomously. You have stolen the giant fly's treasure from her brood of maggots, and you must face the consequences. It's time to test your luck again. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your luck score means you've been lucky, but a roll higher than your luck could end bad. The giant fly swoops down again to try to capture you, but this time you manage to evade its outstretched legs. Stepping back, you draw your sword to prepare to fight the hideous insect as it turns to attack you again. The creature flies at you so close you can't use your weapons. Grabbing it by its legs, you swing around, slamming it into a wall. The fly charges at you, but you're able to duck out of the way. You spin your sword around your head, clipping the fly and removing part of one of its legs. Flying just out of reach, the fly sprays its acidic saliva into your face. It burns your eyes and you scramble to wipe it off. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fist flailing, and land a stunning blow. You grab two of the giant fly's legs, but before you can do any damage, it wriggles free. The creature flies at you so close you can't use your weapons. Grabbing it by its legs, you swing around, slamming it into a wall. Pleased with your victory, you wipe the vile yellow slime from the blade of your sword and walk quickly to the door, back to the tunnel, and head north. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you see a narrow passage disappearing into the dim distance. You walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark pit. The passage continues east on the other side of the pit. You think you could probably jump over the pit, but you are not sure. There is a rope hanging down from the ceiling over the center of the pit. Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. However, in the dim light, you do not notice that someone has cut the rope almost in two, just a little way above the section you are holding. As you swing out across the pit, it suddenly breaks, and you scream with fear as you plunge headlong to the depths below. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall, only costing you 1 skill point and 2 stamina points. Could have been much worse. The darkness is almost pitch black at the bottom of the pit, and you crawl along the floor, groping in front of you. Suddenly your hand touches something cold, hard and smooth. The object is small and round, but you cannot figure out what it is. You place it in your backpack, hoping to see what it is once you are out of the pit. You continue to crawl forward and soon reach the pit wall. It's too smooth to climb, and you have to cut hand and toe holds in it with your sword. This takes a long time, but finally you climb out of the pit on the east side. You immediately check out the object in your backpack and discover that you have found an orb of blood-red ruby. You are absolutely delighted and head off east in high spirits, whistling softly. The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. The door opens into a large candlelit room filled with incredibly lifelike statues of knights and warriors. A white-haired old man dressed in tattered rags jumps out from behind one of the statues and starts to giggle. Though he looks like a fool, the sparkle in his eyes makes you think there is more to him. In a high-pitched voice, he says, "Oh, good! Another stone for my garden. I'm glad you have come to join your friends. Now, I'm a fair man, so I'll ask you a question. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go free. But if your answer is wrong, I'll turn you to stone." He starts to chuckle again, obviously pleased with your arrival. The old man points at one of the statues, and you recognize it immediately. It is the knight who started the trial of champions. The agonized look on his face locked in stone for eternity. The old man smiles, saying,
This man weighs 100 pounds plus half his weight. How much does he weigh?
"What will you answer?" Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says quietly, "Wrong." And before you can do anything else, he mumbles a few strange words into the air. You feel your muscles harden and your skin go taut. You start to panic, but there is nothing you can do to stop the petrification of your body. Your adventure ends here. What will you answer? Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says,
Well done, stranger. You have answered correctly. I wish you good fortune during the rest of the trial of champions. And to this end, I shall increase your powers.
He then mutters a few more unintelligible words, and you feel a powerful surge soar through your body, increasing your skill, stamina, and luck by 1. You bid the old man farewell and leave his room to continue north along the passage. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but can hear nothing. The door opens into a large room. Looking around, you see an alcove in the west wall. In the middle of the room, sitting in the chair, is the skeleton of an armed warrior, possibly a contestant from years gone by. The skeletal fingers of its right hand grip a crumpled parchment. Touching the parchment has precisely the effect you had feared. The skeleton lurches forward and, rising from its chair in a series of jerky movements, raises its sword to strike you. Lunging sideways, you draw your sword to defend yourself. You raise your sword to parry the skeleton's attack, but it knocks your sword aside and lands a painful blow. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings its sword. You kick out, knocking its legs out from under it. The warrior's strength is surprising. You raise your shield to defend yourself, but it smashes you painfully against the wall. You run around the jerking skeleton, smashing your sword into its arm. You jump back as the skeleton swings its sword, but not quickly enough, and it tears into your shoulder, sapping your stamina. The skeleton is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its leg. Once again you reach for the parchment, only this time lying amidst a pile of broken bones. Unfolding it, you see a map of a room with a drawing of a hideous creature inside it. Beneath the monster is a rhyme, which reads, "Should you meet the manticore, of its tail beware. Shield yourself against the spikes, flying through the air." You fold up the piece of parchment and put it in your backpack, repeating the rhyme over and over to yourself. You walk across to the alcove. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is quite low, and the floor is strewn with debris. In the middle of the wall opposite you is an archway, which leads into another crystal-lit tunnel. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. You break off a large piece of the mushroom and bite into it eagerly. But immediately your stomach feels bloated, and you can even see it beginning to bulge below your belt. Your whole body starts to expand, bursting out of your clothes with a loud ripping sound. You grow bigger and bigger, and soon your face is pressed against the ceiling. The mushrooms you have eaten are much sought after by wizards for their growth potions, but to you they spell doom. You are too large ever to leave the cellar, and your adventure ends here. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. The tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trap door. You climb the steps slowly, hearing muffled voices above you. In the dim light, you can see that the trap door is not locked. You hear footsteps, and suddenly the trapdoor is thrown back. For a few seconds you are completely blinded by the bright light from the room above, and do not see the goblin thrusting his spear downwards, or hear his sadistic laughter as the point pierces your neck. Your adventure ends here. You throw the trapdoor open and run up the steps into a bright, lantern-lit room. Two goblins are sharpening their short swords on a stone set in the middle of the floor. You catch them momentarily off guard, but they quickly recover and both rush forward to attack you. A point of note here, adventurer. Because of the shape of the room, both goblins will have a separate attack on you in each attack round. However, here your attack will only be effective on one of the goblins. Against the other, you must still use your attack strength in a normal way. But even if your attack would have been effective, you will not wound it. It will just count this as though you have defended yourself. However, if its attack strength is greater, it will have wounded you in the normal way. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. Triumphant in one of your toughest battles to date, you see that the only furniture in the goblin's room is a table, 2 chairs, and a cupboard on the wall. There are 2 closed doors, one in the west wall and the other in the north wall. The cupboard contains a wooden mallet and 10 iron spikes, which you put in your backpack while wondering which door to open. The door opens into another tunnel, which rises gently into the distance. After walking uphill for a while, the tunnel levels out, and you soon arrive at a door in the right-hand wall, to which a withered hand is nailed. You enter a room in which a man in tattered clothing is standing chained to the wall by his left arm, and you see that his right hand is missing and realize that this must be the one nailed to the door. Pleading for mercy, he cowers back from you as far as his chains will allow. You step up to the frightened man and cleave the chain with your sword. He drops to his knees and bows, thanking you over and over again. He tells you that 4 years ago, he entered the trial of champions but failed. He fell down a pit and had to be rescued by a trial master, one of Baron Succumvit's dungeon administrators. He was offered a choice between death or servitude in Deathtrap Dungeon as the trial master's minion. Choosing the latter, he worked like a slave until he could stand it no longer and tried to escape. Alas, he was unsuccessful and was captured by the trial master's wandering orc guards. To teach him a lesson, they cut off his hand and condemned him to a year's imprisonment in this cell. You ask him whether he has any information that might be of use to you. He scratches his head. Well, I haven't exactly done very well in here myself, but I do know that you need to collect gems and precious stones if you hope to get out. I don't know why, but there it is. Without another word, the ragged prisoner dashes out of the room, turning left into the tunnel. You decide to keep heading north and turn right. There is an open pipe in the right-hand wall, about 1 meter in diameter. It is too dark to see far down it. You shout into it and hear your voice echoing down the iron pipe until eventually the sound fades away. The pipe is wet and slimy, but you crawl on into the dank darkness, slithering and sliding as you go. Suddenly your hand touches something hard and square, which feels as if it is made of wood. It rattles as you shake it, and you decide
You must be holding a box. In the total darkness, you do not see the pipe's downward turn. You slip and, unable to get a grip on the slimy pipe, slide over the edge. Your screams echo down the pipe as you fall the 50 meters head first to the bottom. You have failed the trial of champions. Removing the box lid by the light of the tunnel, you find an iron key and a large gem. It is a sapphire. Placing the items carefully in your backpack, you gain 1 luck point and set off north once again. There is a new branch in the tunnel on your left, and ahead you see 2 bodies lying on the floor. You stop and peer down the new tunnel, but seeing no doors or creatures, you decide against walking down it. With your sword drawn, you walk over to the bodies of the 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the trial of champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing, apart from a necklace of teeth around the neck of one of the orcs. The necklace is an amulet of strength which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest north. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone and wondering which way to go is one of your rivals. It is one of the barbarians. You call out to him, but at first he does not answer. He merely stares at you coldly, his hands firmly gripping his axe. You walk up to him and ask which way he is heading. He grunts his reply, saying that he is going west, and you may go with him if you wish. Although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, knowing that there can only be one winner in the trial of champions, you are both content to share in the benefits of a temporary alliance. And you begin to tell each other of your exploits so far, of the monsters and traps encountered and the dangers overcome. Walking along, you soon come to the edge of a wide pit. It is too deep and dark to see to the bottom. The barbarian suggests he lowers you to the bottom with his rope, saying he has a torch which he can light for you to use. You tie the rope around your waist and take hold of the lighted torch given to you by Throm, as your barbarian ally calls himself. Taking hold of the slack rope, Throm lowers you slowly over the edge of the pit and down into the dark depths below. You can see by the light of the torch that the sides of the pit are extremely smooth. You drop about 20 meters before hitting the bottom of the pit. There, you see another tunnel heading north, and you call up to Throm and tell him of your discovery. He calls back, saying that he is going to tie the rope around a protruding rock on the edge of the pit and will come down and join you. You hear him climbing down, and soon you are together again. Throm retrieves his rope by shaking it off the rock, and you set off north along the new tunnel. On a stone ledge in the tunnel wall, you see 2 dusty leather-bound books. Throm grunts his contempt for the written word, urging you to leave the books and hurry on. The book pages are sealed together, but a small hole has been cut out in the middle of them, just large enough to hold a small corked bottle containing a clear liquid. You show it to Throm, who holds up his hand, indicating that he does not want you to come anywhere near him with it. His distrust of things unknown is strongly evident. The liquid is a magical potion that will enable you to detect hidden traps and adds 2 luck points. You open the book. It immediately begins to disintegrate, the pages turning to dust in your hands. You manage to keep a few fragments and read the handwritten script. The book appears to be about monsters, and from what you can make out, it contains a full description of a monster called the Blood Beast. It is a horrific, bloated creature with tough, spiny skin and facial blisters which burst open to become mock eyes, evolved to hide the Blood Beast's only weak spot. Real eyes. Blood beasts usually dwell in pools of fetid slime which give off a poisonous gas so strong that it alone can easily knock people unconscious. The blood beast, although too bulbous to haul itself out of its slime pool, has a long and vicious tongue which it wraps around its victims before it drags them into its pool. As the helpless and still living victim's flesh decomposes in the vile slime, the blood beast will feed on it. You tell Throm about the grotesque blood beast. He merely shrugs his shoulders and tells you to get going. Setting off, you continue your journey north with Throm. The tunnel turns sharply to the right, continuing east for as far as you can see. Throm stops and tells you to halt as well. He turns his head slowly from side to side, listening. I hear footsteps coming down the tunnel towards us, he whispers. Draw your sword. You both crouch down to hide in the shadows. And not a minute too soon. For a moment later, you see the silhouette of 2 armed guards. Throm jumps up and dashes forward, screaming a loud battle cry. They are 2 cave trolls. Throm attacks the first one with his battle axe, and you run to his aid to attack the second. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You parry the attack, but your enemy is too strong, and you crack your head on the floor as you hit the ground. The troll swings low, crashing into your ankles, knocking you off balance. The troll grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push it off. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You drop to the ground, sweeping away the troll's legs. It howls as its head hits the hard ground. You parry the attack, but your enemy is too strong, and you crack your head on the floor as you hit the ground. You drop to the ground, grab the creature, and ram its head hard into the wall.
You leap forward to grab the troll, but he sees you and pushes you aside. Neither of you are harmed. The troll swings low, crashing into your ankles, knocking you off balance. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You drop to the ground, sweeping away the troll's legs. It howls as its head hits the hard ground. You drop to the ground, grab the creature, and ram its head hard into the wall. You look to the left and see Throm standing over the cave troll he has slain. Blood is pouring out from a deep cut in his shoulder, but it does not seem to worry him. You search the bodies of the cave trolls, but find nothing apart from a bone ring on a leather cord hanging round the neck of one of them. The ring is engraved with a symbol which Throm recognizes. He explains that it must have belonged to druids of the north, and that an ancient talisman such as this will increase your powers if your body is able to accept it. As soon as you put the ring on your finger, your whole body starts to shake. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you've been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. Your body continues to vibrate intensely, and you feel as if you're about to pass out. But your strength is great, and you manage to withstand a tremendous shock to your system. Finally, you calm down and begin to feel the ring's beneficial powers working on you and adding 3 stamina points. You see Throm looking at you anxiously, so you assure him that you are fully recovered. He strides off east, and you follow him eagerly. The tunnel leads into a damp cavern with a high ceiling and rock-strewn floor. Long and wet, teeth-like stalactites hang down threateningly. Their constant dripping creates milky pools on the floor. The tunnel carries on through an archway carved in the shape of a demonic mouse. You walk around the cavern, but find nothing of interest. Throm calls out behind you, saying that he has found a leather pouch under a pile of rocks. Opening the pouch, he laughs out loud as a tiny mouse runs through his fingers and scurries off into the crevice behind 2 boulders. Suddenly, you hear the sound of cracking rock above you and look up and see stalactites breaking off from the roof. Throm's booming laugh, which still echoes through the chamber, has made the stalactites vibrate and break off. You yell at Throm to run through the archway as the stalactites start to crash to the floor. This will be a test of your luck. Despite the stalactites crashing all around you, you manage to dash through the archway without injury. You look around and see Throm thundering towards you, one arm held over his head for protection. He dashes into the tunnel and leans against the cold wall, panting heavily, apologizing for starting the rockfall, and offers you his hand to shake. You tell Throm that maybe he should use sign language in future, even for laughing. You both smile and head east once more. The tunnel ends at a large oak door. Throm wastes no time in testing the handle
candle and is somewhat surprised to find the door unlocked. He pushes it open and walks into a torch-lit chamber. Sitting alone on an ornate chair is a dwarf who bids you enter. As you do so, the oak door swings shut behind you. "Adventurers, you have done well to get this far," says the dwarf in a deep voice. "However, as you both know, there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions. As Trial Master, it is my duty to Baron Circumvit to let only the most able continue. Therefore, I must devise a test of wit and strength to eliminate one of you. Please do not attempt to dispose of me. It will be utterly pointless, for, as you can see, there is no obvious way out of this chamber, and only I know where the hidden exit lies. Now, if you would care to decide between you who will go first, I shall make the necessary preparations." You look at Throm, suddenly angry that your effective partnership might come to an end. He leans over and whispers in your ear that you should try to kill the dwarf and worry about the exit later. You tell Throm that there is no point in killing the dwarf, as you will never find your way out of the chamber alone. You argue that an opportunity of tricking the dwarf might arise later, once you have found the exit from the chamber. So you intend to go through with the dwarf's test. You tell the dwarf that you are ready, and he beckons you to follow him, telling Throm to wait for his return. A secret door opens in the chamber wall, and you follow the dwarf into a small circular room. He closes the door behind you and hands you 2 bone dice, telling you to throw them onto the floor. You roll a 6 and a 2, a total of 8. The dwarf asks you to roll them again, but this time you must predict whether the total will be the same, less, or more than the 8. The dwarf looks at the dice.
"Not very good at playing the odds, are you?"
He sneers.
"I regret you must suffer a penalty before you can continue."
From out of his pocket, he produces 2 pills. One is stamped with the letter S, and the other stamped with the letter L. He asks you to choose one and swallow it. The pill makes you feel as though the whole world is against you, reducing your luck points by 2. The dwarf tells you that you can now go on to the second stage of the test. He reaches for a wicker basket which, he informs you, contains a snake. He tips the basket over and the snake drops out onto the floor. It is a cobra, and it rears up in the air ready to strike. The dwarf tells you that he wishes to test your reactions. You must grasp the cobra barehanded below its head, avoiding its deadly fangs. You crouch down on the floor, tensing yourself for the moment at which to seize it. This will be a tough test of your skill. With lightning speed, you thrust your hand out and grip the cobra just below its open mouth. You lift it up, and with your arm outstretched, you dangle it in front of the dwarf. He doesn't flinch, but says in his calm, expressionless way,
"Please put the cobra back in the basket and prepare for the final part of the test. Follow me."
You do what he says and follow him back into the chamber, where Throm is pacing up and down, obviously ill at ease. You wave to him while the dwarf opens a second secret door and tells you to walk on through and wait for him. Again, you comply, and you find yourself in another circular room, although this one resembles a small arena. The floor is covered with sand, and a small balcony runs around the arena wall. Opposite the secret entrance you came in through is an ominous-looking wooden door. Suddenly you hear a shout, and you look up to see the smiling dwarf standing on the balcony. He throws 2 pieces of paper down to you. On one of them, the words, "No crop is," are written. On the other, "Ruin moat." In his ever-calm voice, he says,
If you rearrange the letters of the words, you will find the names of 2 creatures. You may choose which one to fight in my arena of death.
Can you identify the creature by rearranging the letters? You call out to the dwarf, telling him to send in the scorpion because you are ready to fight. Slowly, the wooden door rises, and a huge, grotesque black scorpion squeezes underneath it and enters the room. You draw your sword in readiness and prepare to fight the sinister creature with its huge pincers and deadly sting. The scorpion will attack you with both pincers, and you must treat each pincer as a separate creature, as though you were fighting 2 creatures. Each pincer has its own skill level and will attack you separately in each attack round. You can only fight 1 pincer in each attack round, attacking it as in a normal battle. But against the other pincer, you must still attack in the normal way. But you are not wounded, even if your attack strength is greater. You must count this as though you have just fended off its blow. Of course, if its attack strength is greater than yours, it will have wounded you in the normal way. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. The scorpion swings its huge, venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side. The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. Speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. The scorpion takes a run at you. Its speed is impressive, but you jump aside, landing a heavy blow on its back. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. The scorpion swings its huge, venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side. The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by. The scorpion takes a run at you. Its speed is impressive, but you jump aside, landing a heavy blow on its back. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. The scorpion swings its huge, venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by. The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. The scorpion takes a run at you. Its speed is impressive, but you jump aside, landing a heavy blow on its back. The scorpion swings its huge venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side.
The dwarf calls down from the balcony, congratulating you on your victory. He throws the sack down into the arena and tells you to relax and regain your strength for the final part of the test. Then he walks off, saying he will return in about 10 minutes. You open the sack and find a jug of wine and a cooked chicken. The food and drink are excellent and you feel much better, gaining 2 more stamina points. Fully satisfied, you sit down and await the dwarf's return. After about 20 minutes, the dwarf reappears on the balcony. He calls down to you, saying,
Well, I do have an interesting problem on my hands. Prepare to fight your next opponent.
The wooden door rises once again, and you are surprised to see a familiar face. It is Throm. He is cut and badly bruised and doesn't seem to recognize you. He is clearly delirious as he staggers forward with his axe raised to attack you. The dwarf laughs and says,
The cobra bit him, but he has the strength of an ox and managed to carry on, even though most men would have died. Now you must fight him to decide finally which of you will continue the trial of champions.
You shout abuse at the dwarf, protesting the cruelty of such a contest. He merely laughs, and you have no option but to defend yourself against poor Throm. Despite his wounds, he is immensely strong.
You parry Throm's attack, but he is too strong, and you trip, cracking your head on the floor as you fall. Throm swings low, crashing into your ankles and knocking you off balance. You drop to the ground, sweeping away Throm's legs. You hate it as he howls as his head hits the hard ground. Throm is tall, and you duck, grab him, and ram his head hard into the wall. You hurl yourself at Throm, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow on his chin. You drop to the ground, sweeping away Throm's legs. You hate it as he howls as his head hits the hard ground. Throm is tall, and you duck, grab him, and ram his head hard into the wall.
Throm grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push him off. You grab Throm around the neck, but he is strong and pushes you off. Neither of you are harmed. You hurl yourself at Throm, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow on his chin.
Exhausted by your long duel, you fall to your knees as you stare at Throm's still body. A bitter loathing for the dwarf fills your heart. Somehow, you will avenge Throm. Engulfed in your hatred, you do not notice the dwarf enter the arena until he is standing right in front of you, a loaded crossbow aimed at your chest.
I know what you are thinking,
He says calmly.
but remember that only I know the way out of here. Get up. It's time for you to leave.
Once on your feet, the dwarf indicates that you should walk ahead of him. Back in the chamber, he crosses over to the northern wall and pushes against one of its stones. A door-like section of the wall swings out, opening into another crystal-lit tunnel. With his crossbow still aimed at your chest, the dwarf smiles, saying,
Good luck.
The tunnel soon divides into two. You hear a buzzing sound coming from the western branch. There is a large panel of glass in the left-hand wall of the tunnel. Through it, you can see a bright, torch-lit room teeming with giant insects of every possible description. Bees, wasps, beetles, ticks. Even the mites are over 6 centimeters long. The noise is threatening. In the middle of the room, a jeweled crown lies on top of a small table. What looks like a large diamond is set in the middle of the crown. You smash the glass with the hilt of your sword, making a hole big enough to climb through. Immediately, the giant insects start swarming and jumping towards you. Wasting no time, you clamber into the room, grabbing one of the lit torches to defend yourself. The fire keeps most of the insects at bay, but by the time you have snatched the crown and climbed back into the corridor, some of them have stung you. We'll roll 1 die and add 2 to the total to decide how many stings you have suffered, reducing your stamina by 1 for each sting. The giant insects do not chase you, preferring the bright light of the room they are in. You examine the crown and see with disgust that it is merely painted iron, and the diamond is just glass and totally worthless. You throw it on the ground in a rage and wonder which way to go next. The tunnel leads into a dark chamber covered in thick cobwebs. Clawing your way through them, you trip over a wooden casket. The casket opens easily, and inside there is a black velvet bag containing a large pearl, gaining you 1 luck point. After putting the pearl in your pocket, you press on through the cobwebs. You reach the far wall of the chamber and see 2 doors. The door opens into another tunnel running north.
Ahead you see two stone fountains, one on either side of the tunnel, carved in the shape of cherubs. Water spouts from their mouths and cascades into small bowls at their feet. The cool water is refreshing and comes from a source which has been sprinkled with pixie dust, gaining you 1 stamina point and 2 skill points. Leaning against the left-hand wall of the tunnel, you see a pair of bamboo stilts. They are securely chained, and you see a label attached to a padlock which reads, "The price of these stilts is 1 gold piece. Place the coin in the slot to release the lock." There is a slot in the padlock into which you place the coin. Immediately the lock clicks apart, and you are able to unchain the stilts. You place them on your shoulder and once again set off north. A little farther on, you come to a section of the tunnel which is covered with thick green slime. It looks threatening, so you decide to test it first with a piece of cloth. The slime's corrosive jelly burns the cloth instantly, leaving no trace. You climb onto your stilts and take a few tentative steps across the floor. Your confidence grows, and you soon feel able to tackle the walk across the slime. Smoke rises from the base of the stilts as the slime starts to burn them away. You plod stolidly on and finally reach firm ground again. Unfortunately, the stilts are still covered in slime, and you are forced to dump them. Setting off north, you come to a junction. You soon arrive at a double door in the left-hand wall. You listen at the door but hear nothing. You try the handle, it turns, and you open the left door slightly and peer through the crack. An armed warrior is lying face down on the floor of a bare room with smooth walls and a low ceiling. He is presumably dead, for he makes no movement, even when you call out to him. A large jewel, perhaps a diamond, lies just beyond his outstretched arm. You're about to enter the room when the potion of trap detection begins to work, and you are filled with a terrible premonition of danger. The room is set with a deadly trap. You decide not to go in and continue north along the tunnel. The tunnel continues north for quite a distance before coming to a dead end. The mouth of a chute protrudes from the western wall, and it appears to be the only alternative to turning back. You decide to risk it and climb into the chute. You slide gently down and emerge into a room, landing on your back. As soon as you stand up, you are confronted by the most repulsive sight you have ever laid eyes on. There in front of you, wallowing in a circular pool of fetid slime, is a bulbous creature too horrible to be believed. Its body is green and covered all over with fearsome-looking spikes. Its face is a mass of crimson blisters, one of which suddenly bursts to reveal yet another of its many sinister, all-seeing eyes. A narrow path runs around the edge of the pool and leads into another tunnel in the far wall. Remembering the description of the vile blood beast and the warning about the toxic gas rising from its pool, you cover your mouth with your sleeve and step forward with your sword drawn, wary of the blood beast's tongue. As you step around the side of the pool, it rolls forward and flicks out its tongue, but you are ready for it and cleave it with one swipe of your sword.
The beast howls in pain and stretches forward frantically, trying to clasp you between its blood-filled jaws. You start hacking at its hideous face in an attempt to pierce its real eyes.
The creature turns and whips its tail at you. The fierce spike at the end misses you by millimeters. You jump forward and strike a clean blow into its rear. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. The creature reaches for you with its mouth from the pool. You step back to avoid it, but slip on its fetid slime. It sinks its teeth into your ankle, costing you precious stamina.
Your blade strikes one of the blood beast's real eyes with devastating effect. It slumps back into its pool, thrashing about in a frenzy. You seize the opportunity and run around the side of the pool to the tunnel exit. The tunnel leads into a large room, its ceiling supported by several marble pillars. As you enter the room, you see a strange beast to your right. It has the body of a lion with dragon-like wings attached to it, but its head is like that of an old bearded man. You recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of the warning poem you took from the skeleton warrior, you watch out for its tail, which sprouts a profusion of sharp spikes at its tip, thick and hard as iron bolts. You raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of spikes released from the manticore's tail and aim straight at your heart. They sink into your shield, and you remain unharmed. Swiftly, you draw your sword and advance on the manticore.
You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort. Neither of you are harmed. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn. It tries to move, but you land a powerful blow. You run to avoid the whipping tail, but stumble. And with a speed you could never have imagined, it tries to sink its teeth into your leg, but you move just in time. Neither of you are harmed. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort. Neither of you are harmed. The giant creature whips its spiked tail at you, firing more spikes. You duck and roll, quickly slicing a chunk from its tail, passing close to you. You run to avoid the whipping tail, but stumble. And with a speed you could never have imagined, it tries to sink its teeth into your leg, but you move just in time. Neither of you are harmed. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort.
neither of you are harmed. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's back leg and manage to bury your sword deep into its thigh. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's leg, but it's ready for you. And before you can strike, it rips your leg with its razor-sharp claws. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn. It tries to move, but you land a powerful blow. The giant creature whips its spiked tail at you, firing more spikes. You duck and roll, quickly slicing a chunk from its tail, passing close to you. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's back leg and manage to bury your sword deep into its thigh.
As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your sword, you are surprised to see a small man jump out from behind one of the marble pillars. He is dressed in a tight-fitting green tunic and looks quite harmless, although you are wary of the way he is holding an opaque glass ball with a shimmering green light. "Greetings," he says cheerfully. "My name is Igbot, the gnome, and I am the trial master for your final test. Needless to say, my magical powers are great, so you should not try to attack me. You may have learnt, during your quest, that gems play an essential part in the trial of champions. The iron door in front of you is the victory exit, but there is only one way of opening it. 3 gems have to be put into the lock mechanism in the correct order. Each gem radiates a unique energy, which will trigger the mechanism. If you do it correctly, that is. But first, we need the correct gems. First, you will need an emerald." The gnome smiles and says, "You truly are a great adventurer. Now, you will also need a sapphire." The gnome, still smiling, says excitedly, "Excellent. Just one to go. Lastly, you'll need a diamond." The gnome shakes his head and says, "I am afraid that you have failed the trial of champions. Baron Succumvit's Deathtrap Dungeon will keep its secrets for another year, as you will not be allowed to leave here. You are appointed my servant for the rest of your days to prepare and modify the dungeon for future contestants. Perhaps, in another life, you will succeed."